Hello, all, and welcome back to the Pipe Cottage. This is Alan Harrelson with you, and I have a very, very special guest on the channel this evening. We have Matt Fradd, who many of you may know as the host of Pints with Aquinas, and I'm sure that many of you have come to the Pipe Cottage from the episode that he and I did together back in September of last year. But this is a gentleman and a scholar of the highest caliber, and it is a privilege and an honor for me to have him here. Matt, we're so happy to have you with us this evening.
I'm honored to be with you, Alan. This is terrific. Hey, listen, I just bought a very beautiful tin of tobacco in Vienna yesterday. Isn't that a nice packaging?
Yes,
It's
indeed.
now I'm going to butcher this pronunciation, Koolhaas and Kop or something.
Well, that's close enough. You know, if you can't pronounce it, I don't believe I can do any better myself.
And then I got this beautiful chestnut pipe in Vienna yesterday.
Oh, good. And it's got a
Yeah,
windbreak top on it.
I'm really enjoying it. Now, I won't be smoking it with you today because I'm renting this house. So I can't be
That's
smoking in it, unfortunately.
Well, that's plenty fine. I own the abode where I am currently residing, so I'm going to fire one up here directly. But Matt, what are you doing in Austria? You're in Austria right now, so what's going on?
Yeah, I'm co-teaching a philosophy course, a philosophy of the human person here in Garming, Austria, which is in Lower Austria. I'm also co-teaching a course on Wojtyła's Love and Responsibility. So we'll be here for the semester with the wife and the kids. And then I'll be also hosting a summer course, a 6 weeks course here. So people from America and elsewhere will be coming for that time. We basically live right beside a 14th century monastery, Carthusian monastery. And Franciscan University of Steubenville owns this, and this is where they send people for a semester to study abroad.
So how long are you going to be there?
Well, right now it looks till about June, but I'm coming back a couple of times. So I head back to Steubenville next Saturday, and for 2 weeks I do 10 full-on interviews. You know, every day I got Peter Crave, Jimmy Aken, a ton more in studio. I can't wait, but it's going to be a lot. And then I come back here. So I'm batch recording episodes for the channel right now.
Good, good. So have you noticed any tobacco culture in that part of Europe? Are there any pipe smokers, cigar smokers where you've been?
What I've noticed is, so the tobacco stores are separate from the local supermarkets. So there's usually big, tobacco signs out front. They do sell Cubans, but I've noticed that a lot of these aren't well humidified. I've had the unfortunate experience more than 2 or 3 times now of getting a nice Cuban and it being too dry. So I've actually picked up pipe smoking again. It's very unpleasant to smoke, in my experience, to smoke a cigar outdoors if there's any amount of wind. The cigar begins to canoe. It's just not as enjoyable. So I've been enjoying pipe smoking, which, as you know, isn't my first choice, but I've been smoking pipes more.
So what is that blend? You showed me before we started recording a blend.
Yeah. Well, it's because as I say, I'm a big fan of packaging, and what's the word? Marketing. Look at this. They've got this lovely little card here, and it tells you 3 of the scents that you'll get from this. Mm-hmm. Says, thank you very, very much for choosing a tobacco from us. We are passionate about creating high-end products, yada, yada. Champagne, strawberry, and croissant. So it's a Virginia Black Cavendish. I believe it's a German brand. But I showed each of my kids this. I'm like, just smell it. Like, no, yuck, I don't want to smell it. But they all smelled it and went, yes, nice. So
it looks exactly like, I guarantee you that's the same blend as Sillem's Black, which is sold in the United States. The same manufacturer from Germany, the absolute same manufacturer. It's sold in the United States as Sillem's Black. And it has a slight aromatic note to it, but a lot of people like it because it reminds them of the old McClellan Frogmorton series. And so I've promoted Sillem's Black, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce the name of that company because I tried to pronounce the name of a French writer in one of my recent videos, and I got some slack for that from some of my French. But I do know that that's a wonderful, wonderful company. So Just talk. Well, I'll just tell people. I've been talking to Matt recently about social media and what good is it? Why do we do this? What's the purpose of content creators? And I'll just be honest with you, Matt, I've not really told you this. It gets a little bit discouraging sometimes. You think, well, we live in this modern world. We have this world in which technology has become so important to us, and so important, in fact, that we waste time on technology when we should be spending time either reading or praying or spending time with the Lord, spending time with family. So, Matt, my question for you is, why do what you do? What is the purpose of Pints for the Aquinas? Why did you start this social media venture? What's the purpose of it?
Yeah, so I mean, just to kind of tackle it in a short way, and then we can go into different areas if you want. I like to think of like YouTube as the main platform to help introduce people to articulate and intelligent and faithful souls who love Jesus Christ and the Catholic Church, and who can help them come into relationship with Christ and the Catholic Church. But I view all the other social medias as tributaries that lead into YouTube. So to be honest with you, Instagram, Facebook, these are really just ways of marketing a lot of the time, Pints with Aquinas, to bring them into the YouTube world where I think they can encounter these faithful souls. So I think of it more of a business thing than anything.
I was reading. It makes perfect sense. I was reading through the Second Vatican Council declarations published by Word on Fire,
Beautiful.
Bishop Barron, and there's a point where the Second Vatican Council is talking about at what that time was television and radio. Of course, they didn't have the internet and so forth in the 1960s, like we do now. But what Bishop Barron explains in one of his little excerpts in there is that Christians, Catholics, should use all of these resources to the full benefit of the kingdom, to the full benefit of the kingdom. These are resources that we have available to us. They can be a means of ministry, a means of getting to people. But my reservation with that is, if I'm talking to somebody face to face, I can have a much closer relationship with them than I can online. And I know that you have this same problem. You have emails and comments on videos. You can't respond to all of it. And actually, I've gotten to the point where people get rather pissed off if I don't respond to their emails. And I just simply don't have time to do all of that. And so how do you deal with the personal relationship aspect of ministry through social media?
Yeah, I choose not to respond to people. It's not that I don't have the time. It's that even if I did have the time, I'd still be unwilling to respond to every email, Instagram, direct post, and the like. C.S. Lewis used to say that he would respond to every piece of mail that would come into him, because through his books, he began a conversation. And so he was obligated to continue it through letter writing. But it seems to me that letter writing and shooting off a quick Instagram direct message or email is very different. One takes some effort, one doesn't at all. And if I were to spend my time engaging in email back and forths and YouTube comment back and forths, I just wouldn't. First of all, I don't want to do it. But second of all, if I did do it, it would just suck my energy out of things I'm more interested in engaging in. Interesting you say that, though, about like person to person. I just got back from the zoo in Vienna, which they say is the oldest zoo in the world. And my wife and I were looking at this beautiful, magnificent polar bear. And, it was sort of turned such that we couldn't see its face, but we were captivated by it. And I said, isn't it interesting? We're looking through a screen of, glass, essentially, and we're captivated by this in a way that we wouldn't be if we had a much better angle through the television or the computer. Why is that? And there's the recognition that it's there. But I don't know. Maybe it's more than that. Maybe it's that I'm actually seeing it and not just a representation of it, which is one of the reasons I really enjoy doing long form discussions across a table. as enjoyable as it is to speak to you over this. I'm glad we got the chance for it, and I'm happy that technology allows us to do this. You certainly lose a lot, I think.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
this is not going to compare with the time that we had across from your table when we did
That
that.
was very enjoyable.
Oh my Lord, did I ever more enjoy that? And so I was just telling you before we started this recording that I received an invitation to go back to Steubenville to Chesterton Cigar and to talk about pipe smoking at that particular place. Now, you're a part owner of that, is that right? What's the relationship? I mean, tell us about Chesterton Cigar.
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, me and a couple of mates decided to open up a cigar lounge in Steubenville, Ohio. So we did. One of the nice things about living in a rundown town is that it is somewhat affordable to buy these buildings, to renovate them, and things like that. So Chesterton's is a wonderful little cigar shop. We have a lot of pipe accessories, pipes, tobacco, things like that. And one of the things we decided when we renovated the place was that we would have no televisions and no electronic music. And what's interesting is if you go to Google reviews, the only negative reviews we've got are from people being like, "Why don't these people have televisions?" And you know why. It's precisely so that people can do human things like smoke tobacco and engage in good conversation with each other. And in fact, since we've opened that lounge, I know of one person who went to confession, the sacrament of confession, for the first time in at least, I want to say 25, maybe 30 years. It's another person's coming back into the Catholic faith. We're not there to proselytize, we're certainly not there to kind of push the Catholic faith on them, but it naturally comes up and they see these people who come into the lounge who may not yet be Catholic, see the joy and the love and the intellectual interest people have, and they begin to ask questions, and it just sort of naturally leads people into a more beautiful life. So
Do y'all have an internet presence? I mean, do you sell online or is it just brick and mortar?
it is currently just brick and mortar, but we are moving towards an internet presence. In fact, the first Pints with Aquinas labeled cigar will be dropping mid-March. We hope to have the store up by Easter, and we'll be selling those cigars at that point.
Now, what I hear through the grapevine is that y'all are trying to come up with some of your own house pipe blends. Do you know anything about that?
I'm more familiar with the cigar blends that we're coming up with. We're working with these different places in Nicaragua and elsewhere. We're testing a lot of cigars. So it wouldn't surprise me that people are trying to come up with some pipe blends as well. It's interesting.
Yeah, they are. They are. We know several of the same people affiliated with this Chesterton establishment. And
well, you'll have to come and give us your advice and counsel us a little so that we don't make any.
That's one of the reasons I'm going to Steubenville. We've not yet figured this out yet, but you're in Austria, so you're doing other things. I'm dealing with the people who are still in Steubenville right now. But what I want to do, I mean, I love that shop. When we were in Steubenville last, I went to this cigar lounge and it was just beautiful. Actually, I played a little 5-string banjo during the Tolkien event that y'all had there.
Mm-hmm.
And a good friend of mine came with me from Virginia to Steubenville, and we were reminiscing about that recently, and we concluded that if heaven is anything like that evening, it's going to be glorious. We just received a little taste of heaven. Mm-hmm. And what we meant by that, and we both knew what we meant by that, is just everybody's having a good time, enjoying one another's company. Have a little whiskey, have a little pipe tobacco, and it's just the beauty of the conviviality, the fellowship. I mean, that was an evening. That was the one evening in the entirety of 2023 that I didn't want to end, because it was just wonderful people who had a lot of things in common. It wasn't all religious material. I mean, you've got cultural and intellectual topics that are in common. So if anybody's listening to this, if you are anywhere around Steubenville, Ohio, and just anywhere, I mean, I can attest to the quality of this tobacco lounge. It's not simply cigars. They do have wonderful pipes. What about this Fradd pipe maker? I mean, y'all sell some Fradd pipe And so, what do you know about this particular gentleman?
Well, I first want to say that I might get some of this wrong because I'm not terribly familiar with him. Here's what I know. The fella's in high school and he
Yeah,
makes
right.
these very beautiful pipes, Frassati pipes, and we've been selling them in our store. Um, I met him recently. I think I met him with you because he had come for that particular event. And I think we said to him, look, move to Steubenville. We'll give you a full-time job if you want to just make pipes for us. This fella's really terrific. What a beautiful. I mean, so many of us are useless in a way. I don't mean useless, but it's like the internet seems to have made us far, myself included, useless than we could be. And here you have this high schooler coming up with these. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, as an expert in pipes, would you agree that his pipes are quite good? Or
His pipes are good. His pipes are
yeah,
excellent. I was just trying to look and see if I had one on my desk that I could show people. I've got them somewhere else. But yes, here's one right here. Here's one of his, here's one of the pipes that I bought from
that's right.
Chesterton Cigar. It's Chesterton Cigar. And it's beautiful. I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous. I mean, this man knows exactly what he's doing. And I did meet him, and he was like 16 years old at the time.
Yeah,
I guess
yeah.
he's going on like 17 years old now. He may be 17.
Maybe we
But,
could put a link to his in the bottom,
oh,
a link to
absolutely.
his. Yeah, yeah. We'll have
Absolutely.
to.
Yeah, I'll make a note of that and we'll do it. But yeah, you talk about the internet, and being good on the internet doesn't necessarily mean that you're good with your hands and doing something that is craftsman-like.
Right.
Craftsmanship is a lost art these days, not only
Yeah.
with pipe smoking, but I mean, we just paid a guy to build a chicken coop behind the house here.
Mhm.
And the reason I had to pay somebody else to build a chicken coop is because I didn't have enough confidence in my own ability to do it myself. And had I talked to my granddaddy about that in his generation, he would have thought that hiring somebody to build a chicken coop for yourself would have been just asinine. It would have been absolutely foolish. We have lost far too much by relying upon social media. And I deal with this a lot through making Pipe Cottage videos and trying to display a certain value system on the internet via pipe content. But I think that at the end of the day, many people who pick up the pipe, they are old souls to begin with. You don't pick up
Right.
a pipe without expecting people to notice you if you're smoking it in public, because it's such an icon of a bygone era.
It
And
really is. I mean, just even today and yesterday, walking through Vienna with my wife, I would say to her, "Babe, let's go sit down. We'll have a coffee. I need to have a pipe outdoors." And it's not that people have stopped smoking; it's just they're now doing vaping, and vaping is just quick and simple. There's no art to it. And I thought to myself, why am I so against vaping? But I am not against things like hookah. And I guess it's because there's a history there. And there's also an art. There's a culture behind it. It's not just a quick and dirty kind of thing. But
I was
anyway,
talking to Jimmy Aken. I interviewed Jimmy Aken probably 2 or 3 weeks ago about his pipe smoking habits. And you said you're going to have Jimmy Aken on your
yeah, I
talk
told
to
him
him
to make
about
sure he brings a pipe. What should I talk to
pipe.
him about?
Talk to him about pipe smoking. The man knows
I
more
will.
about pipe smoking history and tobacco history than anybody I've ever encountered.
Now, did
He,
he teach you anything or
oh
no?
my Lord, yes, did he ever more? I mean, he knows. I mean, his brain is just
Oh my
I
gosh.
can't imagine what kind of study he's done, but he knows far more about tobacco history. Just ask him. Just
I
ask him.
will. I
So
absolutely
anyway,
will.
we were talking about some different criticisms that I get on the Pipe Cottage channel, and people, and I have gone on record being critical of marijuana use. And I don't think that pipe smoking and tobacco use should be placed in the same category as marijuana. So what are
Sure.
your thoughts on that?
Oh, I have evolving thoughts on this. Okay, let me preface all that I'm about to say with something else, and that's this. All right. Hopefully this will make sense. In the context of friendship, so suppose you and I were talking now, in a private room having a pipe or having a little whiskey, and you ask me that question, I might respond to you. And even if you strongly disagree with me, you would seek to give me the benefit of the doubt, or you would try to meet me halfway because we're friends. It's interesting now to share opinions that go out to potentially tens of thousands or more people where that isn't the case. What you're sharing is not within the context of friendship. So, with that said, I want to share honestly with you how I feel about this, and hope that people will give me the benefit of the doubt. So, I find that whenever you venture into this kind of realm of marijuana, if you start looking into the studies or what people say for and against, it gets very confusing very quickly. And I've never sat down and went through all the studies for and against, harms plus possible benefits. People assure me one way or the other all the time. It tends to get very political very quickly. If I'm allowed to just kind of like sidestep the studies and just go, okay, I'm just going to pretend that marijuana is in moderation isn't harmful, right? Maybe it is, maybe it's terrible, but let's just pretend it's not, which people have told me that. Then I would say that I think I would just consider it like alcohol, because every argument that I've heard against marijuana cuts against alcohol. Even my own arguments. So I have several arguments against marijuana, and I see now that they all cut against alcohol. One would be like, I don't like the kind of people who smoke pot. Like they have their anime shirts and their ripped jeans. And I don't want to be associated with that. I don't want to become like that. I don't like that. Yeah, okay, fair enough. But you go around a trashy bar in Steubenville and you might meet some undesirable people and you might not want to be like that. It doesn't mean that everybody who drinks alcohol is like that. Okay. Another thing someone might say is we don't need another reason to escape. Like we need to face reality head on. We shouldn't be looking for more avenues to suppress our issues through drugs. Okay, but alcohol can do that as well. Or you might say, well, there's no sort of, it doesn't have a history in the West. And I guess the answer to that is either one, the West is superior. I wouldn't hold this view, but the West is superior in every regard. And therefore, who cares what they were doing elsewhere? That seems kind of racist to me, I think. I think we have to kind of judge it on its own merits. So what's my view on marijuana? I suppose that if somebody is smoking it in moderation, I wouldn't be horrified by that. Okay, here's an argument against marijuana that I think I hold that I don't think is convincing. So if I'm allowed to offer an argument I don't think is convincing, but convinces me, it's this one. We live in a day and age where people are tearing down taboos left, right, and center. And I don't want to be a part of that. And it seems to me that the taboo that currently exists that prevents people sometimes from smoking marijuana is trying to be torn down. I don't want to be a part of that. And that's where I land.
So why do people smoke marijuana? Is there a difference between why people smoke marijuana and why people smoke a pipe or a cigar?
Oh, my goodness, of course. You have a neurological effect that doesn't exist with tobacco. There's a sort of it's like why do people drink alcohol if they can smoke a pipe? It's like, well, because they enjoy feeling buzzed. Yeah. And something like that occurs when people, I used to think, not having much experience in this area, I used to think that you couldn't smoke pot without getting high, but you could sip whiskey and not be drunk. And people assured me that just isn't true, and I didn't know what I was talking about. They said maybe it's the case that it's a little more difficult to regulate, and so I have to go, okay, well, I guess I don't know enough.
Well,
that wasn't terribly helpful, but those are some, thoughts within friendship.
Right. And I have never been able to tolerate the odor of marijuana. I have smelled it before. I just can't tolerate it. And the culture surrounding it is not a culture that I want to be involved with. I think it's not the culture of an intellectual society. And And
Mhm.
I will defend an intellectual society. I think that having an intellectual standard is extremely important. There are certain types of people who I will allow into my inner circle if we want to talk about that. Marijuana smokers are not a part of that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
at the same time, I have to realize that when we consume alcohol, there is a similar effect that happens in the brain. I was actually reading Walker Percy this morning, and Walker Percy's essay on bourbon, and
Okay. Yeah. I've read that back in the day.
and he's and now you have to remember that Walker Percy, he was a devout Catholic, and he was a devout Southerner. He was from
Mhm.
Mississippi, and he was a very devout Southerner. And I often have to chuckle when I listen to people talk about Walker Percy in lectures, and they never talk about how Southern he was. But he was talking about, yeah, he was a medical doctor. He was a medical doctor before he decided to retire from that and be a full-time writer. So he knew
Hmm.
full well uh, harmful effects of alcohol. But in his essay on bourbon, he makes the point, I don't give a damn about the harmful effects of alcohol if it will help me deal with the bullshit of modern society. And so that is a point that should not be taken lightly. I just made a video on my other channel, Why Modern Life Sucks. And I stand by everything I said in that. That we have created a situation over the past 100 years where people are alienated from God. Individualism has taken control of people where they are able to control truth in their own right. And the only philosophy that the United States can claim that's original to itself is pragmatism, which came through the mind of John Dewey and William James in the latter part of the 19th century, which essentially teaches that your truth is your truth, my truth is my truth. But I am building a lecture for the Chesterton Society meeting in July of this year. And you recently interviewed Dale, who is the president of the Chesterton Society. And what I want to talk about in that lecture is essentially what Flannery O'Connor had to say about the South and Catholicism. And I'm kind of switching topics a little bit here because I want to get your thoughts on this. And Flannery O'Connor once said that the day may come when the spiritual traditions of the American South will be preserved exclusively through the Catholic Church. And I know exactly what she meant by that, because there is an element in the American South that cannot be found in other parts of the United States, where people recognize that salvation is not simply by faith alone. You have to work for it. It's faith and works. And so you spend a little time in the South. I guess what I'm getting to, because a lot of people who watch the Pipe Cottage are very much interested in Southern history and the American South. Have you read Flannery O'Connor? Have you read Walker Percy? And what are your opinions on the role of Catholicism in traditional American culture? Is there a way that the Catholic Church and traditional American culture can marry together to produce a better society and a better future compared to what we have now?
I have read a little bit of Walker Percy. I have to say, I was never taken with him. I have read many of Flannery O'Connor's novellas and short stories to my children, in fact, and they love Flannery O'Connor, and I do too. It struck me recently being here in Europe. I don't know if this is exactly right, but I think you can fit Europe within the United States, the continental US. Have I got that right? I think that's
Yes,
about right.
actually, the former Confederacy would encompass most of continental Europe if we were to take the 11 states that existed in the Confederacy in the 18th.
Oh, okay. All right. But what's interesting is how different the culture is, right? Within France as opposed to Yugoslavia or Ireland, right? And that is because these people existed within an area, within their families, within their cultures for so long that language develops, music develops, custom dress, these things develop. Now, of course, with the EU and us all kind of crossing the borders, it'll be interesting to see how these countries seek to preserve their customs, and we may even see them being completely obliterated. But what's interesting is in the United States, being a much younger country, and Australia as well, you obviously don't have that diversity. I would think that the United States would have that diversity if the automobile hadn't recently been invented, the aeroplane hadn't recently been invented, and these sorts of things. So I guess my hope is that there is these deep pockets of culture within the United States. My fear is that with modern media and those other things that I've just mentioned, that those cultures really just sort of get obliterated, so that we're all just this sort of bland, well, culture, maybe even not be the right use of the word, because what do we mean by culture? Like a life shared in common. You go, okay, what do Americans have in common? The Super Bowl, maybe? Like maybe not even Thanksgiving, because that's so hotly contested now. So I don't like the Super Bowl and a hangover on New Year's Day. So it doesn't seem to me that a country can last very long if it doesn't have a sort of shared. Maybe America's way too big. Maybe America never should have been this big. And I don't know if I mean population wise or if I mean geographically, but I know that when I meet people like you, or I meet people from the South who love the South, and they're proud that their people come from there. That really warms my heart. I love it when people sound like they're from somewhere and they take great delight in being from that place. It's my fear, though, that maybe that's all getting washed away. And yeah.
Well, so I listened to I don't know whether it was a live stream. There was a video you did on your channel where you made the statement that you admired the beauty of the Confederate flag.
Oh, I love it. It's the most beautiful flag.
You received criticism for saying that.
Yeah, imagine.
So,
I thought the internet was just going to roll over and give me that one, but they didn't.
Well, I tend to believe that in American society, the Catholic Church has its greatest potential in the American South. So why Steubenville, Ohio? Why are you in Steubenville?
Friendship. We had experienced Catholic community before. What do I mean by Catholic community? I mean, I don't need a lawnmower because you have one, and I walk up to your house and you give it to me when I need to mow my lawn, and you show up at my door with a bottle of wine without asking, and you just let yourself in and we hang out, and like we pray together, we pray for each other's children. I had experienced that early in our marriage, so I knew it existed. And so when I would live in these sort of suburbs, what people would call Catholic community, I was like, I don't know if this is it. I want something more intentional. And I don't mean kind of weird and sort of solipsistic and insular, but I want what I think I know exists. So we decided to move to Steubenville for friendship, and we have not been disappointed.
So what's your tobacco routine? What's your daily smoking routine?
Well, when I'm in Steubenville, I smoke a pipe. I smoke a cigar every morning. That's my goal, to smoke a cigar. I have a routine. I go work out 3 times a week. And I don't do anything. Well, it's intense for me. It may not be intense for people more fit than me. I go to the YMCA and get on the treadmill for a while, lift some weights. I do this about 3 or 4 times a week, and then I'll go to the cigar lounge with a coffee and smoke a beautiful, big, fat cigar, and then I'll get to work. And then usually in the late afternoon or evening, I'll either have another cigar or a pipe. That's what I try to do every day. But I will say this, and I do say this, I guess, in maybe defense of myself here. Maybe it's a little defensive. Having been here, and as I mentioned earlier about the cigar quality or the no place to smoke, there's just days that I'll go without smoking a cigar and I don't notice it. I don't notice that I missed a cigar. Right. So people talk about it being addictive, and maybe it is, but for me, I think as honest as I know how to say it, I guess I'm as addicted to cigars as I am to coffee. And I think I'm addicted to coffee, not because I'm addicted to coffee, but because it's part of the routine that gets me going in the morning, you know? And I like a routine. And so cigars are part of my routine.
So your routine has changed while you're in Austria compared to what it is in
Yeah.
Steubenville.
Yeah. I barely
Well,
smoke cigars here.
well, that's a point that many people bring up in comments on this channel. How can you smoke a pipe and not be addicted to nicotine? Well, because you don't inhale. You're not supposed. If you smoke a cigar or a pipe correctly, you're not supposed to be inhaling that. And so, if you bring the smoke into your lungs, then the lungs will absorb nicotine many, many times higher than what the oral cavity will.
Oh,
So,
interesting.
it's not near the same thing. I go many days without smoking anything, but so what are you going to do with this cigar lounge? What's the plan for this cigar lounge in Steubenville? Because I guarantee you, when I mention this cigar lounge in Steubenville, people are going to look it up. So
Well,
what's
I
the
appreciate it. Well, I mean, we honestly created it not even to make money. And we actually have made no, I mean, it's in the black, it's doing well. But we haven't taken any money out of it yet. We just keep reinvesting it. We wanted to create a space in Steubenville where humans could come and talk to each other. And I know you've talked about this, and maybe people are tired of hearing it, but there's something beautiful about sitting down, firing up a cigar because it's a commitment. I'm saying I'm going to sit here for at least an hour. And when you do that with a friend, it's just this beautiful, conducive environment for good conversations. So we wanted to create a place in Steubenville where people could come and have conversations. And we've done that. In addition to that, there's poetry readings, comedy nights, and all sorts of things. We hope to make money from it. We'd like money. We'd like to make it. And so when we go online, we hope to sell a lot of Pints with Aquinas cigars, and we have our own Chesterton label coming out. We'd like to get some more beautiful furniture. We might create a space in the basement downstairs for extra room. But in addition to that, we have no. I mean, maybe the other guys who are owners have plans, but I don't. That's it.
well, let me move a little bit. I just got one overarching question here. You're in social media. You've got what, close to 500,000 subscribers on your channel now.
Yep.
Where is this taking us? What's the future of social media? Are you going to continue to do this? And
I struggle with this frequently. I
is there a
really struggle.
long-term purpose? I mean, because I do too. I mean, I wake up in the morning. I mean, yesterday I made 2 videos, and at the end of each session, I thought, why in the hell did I do any of this? What
Yeah,
was the point
yeah.
of it? Who's
Especially
going to
when
watch?
you encounter people like Jimmy Aken, you're like, why doesn't he just have a podcast and nobody else is allowed to have one? Like, there's no need. Nobody else needs one. Yeah, no, this is something I struggle with. I don't know if other people struggle with it, but certainly there are days where I'm like, I'm done. Like, I don't need, why am I doing this? Like, is it power? Like, is that, because here's the thing, it's easy to point at other people and decide why they're doing the things that they're doing. We might point to, say, Joe Biden and say, why doesn't he just go and hang out with his grandkids? What the hell is he doing? And we might decide, well, it's probably power. You get a sniff of power, and I think all of us have to not just point our finger outward at others and say, why are they doing the things that they're doing? We have to go, well, okay, sure, we're not the president of the United States, but we do have our own realms of power, and that can be addictive. And we have to ask those tough questions. Like, I'm a boomer, I'm an old man. Like, why don't I just let a younger fella take this over? Maybe I should do that. Would that be a good idea? I think this it's an ongoing wrestling thing with me. So where is it going? I don't know, but I'll tell you this. I know I've also fallen into the trap of really downplaying Pints with Aquinas and being like, it's just go read a book, don't watch this stupid show. Like, I've said things like that. But then I went to Australia to speak, and I met hundreds of people. And if I'm to believe them, which I think I should, many of them, most of them were saying, I've come back to the church because of Pints with Aquinas. Obviously not, it's not entirely Pints with Aquinas, but these are the words they say to me, right? So or I had a conversion, or I was about to leave the church and I heard this interview and it really helped me. And I remember being incredibly heartened and gratified by that. And I thought, I almost repented, Lord, I'm sorry. Like, you've given me this beautiful little platform, and here I have, maybe in my pride, I've downplayed this role that you've given me, as opposed to humbly thanking you for it and begging you for the grace to do it as well as I can. And even that, it takes a lot of humility, right? Because whenever you speak off the cuff, like we're doing tonight, you always think, oh, I could have said that better, or I shouldn't have said that, or what was I thinking? It takes humility, to live in that place, because, I think often we see our own sins, our own failures, and we're horrified by them. Whereas if we were humble, we wouldn't be. We would be like, yeah, of course, that's what you should expect from me. Oh my gosh, I'm so wretched. And I thank God for Jesus Christ who has saved me. So I'm very grateful for pints. I'm very grateful for the good that people tell me that it does. And I pray that I'll just sort of be open as I move forward. And I'm sure you feel the same about your excellent channels, that when the Lord asks us to step off, that we'll be able to do that, or hand it over, we'll do that, or to continue even in our own weakness, that we'll continue to do that.
Well, sir, and that's the perfect answer. And I often struggle with this because, as you know, we live on acreage here in Southeast Kentucky, and I don't
I got a question, but before I want you to finish your thought. Sorry to interrupt you, but then I have a question for you. So before you wrap, just in case you were about to wrap up the interview. Sorry, keep going.
All right, good. Okay. I forget that you are the ultimate interviewer and you come up with these ideas. We live on acreage here in Kentucky, and I would happily live the rest of my life simply watching my children grow up, having a relationship with my family, taking care of my land without making another video. Every time I hit the record button, I think, what is the purpose? Why am I doing this? I'm already diametrically opposed to the technological age anyway. I hate it. I hate the way technology has reduced people to numbers. We're just numbers now. And I just despise that. But I appreciate your answer to that question. It resonates a lot with me. So I am curious, what is your question?
Yeah, well, I mean, I know that podcasts aren't often as sophisticated as literature. And yet, I suppose it can be analogous to it. And someone may have asked Walker Percy, like, something similar. Maybe he had similar doubts. There's enough good authors doing their thing. Why do I have to contribute? Wouldn't I be happy just to step away from the fray? So maybe I'd invite people who are watching this right now to let people know below why you love Alan, why you love Pipe Cottage, what it does for you, because I think we need to take our viewers seriously when they tell us it benefits them. My question is this, because I've always wondered, like, you have this, like, part of your branding, like, it's authentic. When I say branding, I don't mean that it's artificial or contrived. But part of your branding is like on the ranch, like away from technology. So after that's when I wonder, like, how that must be more difficult for you than for me. And then you go one step further. There's these people who do off the grid YouTube channels. And I'm like, this doesn't seem to make sense to me. And I don't want to judge them, and I don't want to presume that what they're doing, but it does seem a little, doesn't it? Like a little hypocritical. I'm not saying they are.
It is. Most of the people who I know who do the off-grid YouTube stuff, they're able to live off-grid because they have YouTube personalities, because they make money off YouTube. I mean, I'm not going to name names, but obviously there are many homesteading YouTube channels that have well above 1 million subscribers, some 2 million plus subscribers. And they're making a lot of money off of technology. And that's not, it is absolutely hypocritical. Because the most important people who I've ever known, the most important people who have taught me something intellectually or spiritually, you'll never see them on social media. You'll never see them. They don't care about social media. And I mean, most of my friends are now dead. Most of the people who I called friends in my teens and my 20s, they're now dead because they were 70 and 80 years old when I knew them.
Oh, okay.
And so I was always attracted to people who are much, much older than I was because they could teach you something. I never went to anybody my age thinking that they could teach me something more important than somebody who was 30 or 40 years older than me.
Okay.
And so I take the internet and social media with very little seriousness. It's not serious. And actually, when I talk to my personal friends and my family about stories from my past, none of these people know anything about social media. Our life cannot be focused entirely upon what we learn through the internet. People need to stop, take stock, and read. Get to know your neighbors. Get to know people who are much older than you. Because if this internet business continues, we're going to lose that relationship with people who knew what the world looked like before the internet existed. Actually, I was talking to a friend of mine last night and told him that I never used the internet until 2010. I was 24 years old before I even cared anything
Really?
about the internet. I finished my bachelor's degree and my master's degree through reading books, going to archives, and doing actual historical research. The only thing I used a computer for was a word processor. I didn't do anything on the internet. I despised email. I didn't,
Mm.
I had a flip phone until 2014. I didn't have a smartphone. And even today, I absolutely despise the thing. We have this little box that's 5 inches tall and 3 inches wide, and our whole life is constituted by
Mm.
what we can learn through that little screen. And it pisses me off because there's life everywhere that's bigger than a 5x3 screen.
Yeah.
People don't pay attention to it. We don't know our neighbors. We don't know people who live around us. We're not willing to listen to people who are much older than we are because in our modern 21st century society, we think that if it matters, it began the day we were born. It began the day we were born. Anything that happened before my life, I don't care about it. We have no historical consciousness in the United States anymore. In Europe, they still have a good bit of it. In Europe, there is a lot of history. You can't get away from history if you're in Europe, and you know
Mm.
that more than anybody because you're there and you've been visiting. But yes, sir, it's a complicated relationship that I have with social media, with the internet, with
But
technology.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, I don't know. I see you sound like how I talk a lot of the time. So I'm going to push back against you, and in so doing, push back against me. And I would say I think the internet's probably a better place because you exist on it. And I suppose the fact that you're struggling with it is a very good sign. You know, the day you stop struggling with it, maybe that's a sign that you've gone over to the dark side. And I like that you said that you'd be happy if you never click record on a video again. I mean, if you meant that, that's really impressive. And you could think of the work that you're doing as a sort of you have to offer it up. Like here's a sacrifice because if I take people at their word, they're benefiting from this, and um, yeah, I don't know.
Well,
So yeah,
go ahead.
that's it. I'm just rambling now.
Well, that's basically the thing. I get handwritten letters every week, almost
Wow.
every day. Almost every day, I get
Yeah.
written letters from people who tell me how the Pipe Cottage has helped them become closer to their grandparents or helped them become closer
Wow.
to church. Or and actually several people who have converted to Catholicism and they share their stories with me. And
Praise God.
that's God is using whatever tools he can. Whatever tools are available, the Lord is using it.
Mhm.
And I'm so thankful for it. But it is a difficult relationship with the internet. But anyway, we need to stop because I know
Okay.
you need to go. It's getting fairly late where you are in Europe. But Matt, when you are back in Steubenville, let me know and we'll come and we'll have a pipe together.
I would love that. I look forward to it. God bless you, Alan. You're a good man. Thank you for having me on the show.
Well, sir, thank you, sir. And ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know about Pints with Aquinas, check him out. His YouTube channel is absolutely phenomenal. But in the meantime, this is Alan Harrelson with the Pipe Cottage. Thank you for stopping by.